Nice to see everyone and to be looking at Amos 9 together. Some years ago, a friend of mine and I wrote a book on on reading the Bible, and it gave various kind of tools or tips on how to understand a Bible passage. And one of those tools was called the tone and feel tool. It wasn't to do with keeping fit. The point was we didn't just want to understand the sort of, if you like, the truth content of a passage, but also get the kind of tone and the feel of how that truth was being conveyed. My friend wrote the chapter and he wrote this: we mustn't reduce the Bible to a series of statements. We want to be alert to the writer's tone, to immerse ourselves in the picture that is painted so that our imaginations are awakened and our emotions engaged. And looking at Amos 9 this week reminded me of that chapter. If I was to reduce Amos 9 to some simple statements, I would say God promises judgment and God promises a new creation. That's the sort of truth content, if you like. But the way he says it, the tone and the feel of how he says it, that's, if you like, where the gold is. This is a passage to awaken our imaginations and fire our emotions, as my friend put it, so that we not only know things about judgment and new creation, but we feel things about them. We think and are enlivened by them. So first of all, let's think about judgment. I think Amos wants us to see that this judgment is terrifying because it's inescapable without Jesus. Verse 1, I saw the Lord standing by the altar and he said, strike the tops of the pillars so that the thresholds shake. Bring them down on the heads of all the people. So the vision is of a temple. It's probably the temple at Bethel that gets talked about earlier in the book, where the Israelites worshipped other gods. And God says, strike the pillars so it all comes crashing down and kills the people inside. In other words, it's a vision of judgment. Now, so far, so sort of normal, really, or so Amos. We've had quite a lot of this in Amos. But listen to the tone and feel of this as we go on in verse 1. Not one will get away, none will escape. Though they dig down to the depths of the grave, from there my hand will take them. Though they climb up to the heavens, from there I will bring them down. Though they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, there I will hunt them down and seize them. Though they hide from me at the bottom of the sea, there I will command the serpent to bite them. It's like a sort of terrible dream where you're trying to hide from an attacker, but there's nowhere to go. They keep finding you. There's nowhere to hide. Here, it doesn't matter how high, how low, how far they go, God will find them and judge them. You know, something that makes this sort of a bit even more sort of terrifying is the way this language is used in different ways in other parts of the Bible. So let me try and show you what I mean. Psalm 139 says, where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. And if I make my bed in the depths, you are there. It's very like Amos 9, isn't it? God is everywhere. You can't get away from him. But in the psalm, it goes on, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. So not being able to get away from God is a good thing. It brings comfort and assurance. But here in Amos 9, it's got reversed. Not being able to get away from God now means you can't escape his judgment. Or you get a similar thing with some of the phrases here. In the Old Testament, God often says to his people, my hand rescued you. By my hand, I brought you out of Egypt. Now he says, verse 2, it doesn't matter how much you dig down, my hand will take you from there. Or we're told in the Old Testament, God fixes his eye on you to bless you and to give you favor. Here, verse 4, he says, I'll fix my eyes on them for evil, not for good. It's like all that God is, his presence, his power, his hand, his eye. If those things are if God's for you, all those things bring comfort and bring rescue and safety. But now it's reversed. Now God's against them. And so all that he is, his power, his presence, his hand, his eye, is against them. And it's terrifying. I don't know if any of you have seen the Terminator films or any of the Terminator films with Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're not exactly highbrow. Arnie is a robot sent from the future to the present, and he's amazing. He's got amazing strength and lots of sort of gadgets and skills and can do lots of things. He's basically indestructible. But I remember getting confused because in one film, he was the goodie, and he was sent to protect the heroine, who's called Sarah Connor, and he's trying to keep her safe. And having Arnie on your side was brilliant because of all he is, and that's for you. But in another film, he's the baddie, and he's trying to kill Sarah Connor. Don't worry about the confusion, but my point is, having him and all that he is for you is brilliant. Against you is terrifying, and it's terrifying in the film. He doesn't stop. He keeps coming after you relentlessly. And God, well, he's the creator of everything. He's present everywhere. He has incomparable power. And if he's for you, that's wonderful. But if he's against you, it's terrifying, because it means this judgment is inescapable. Now, you might be thinking, okay, tone is clear, terrifying, got it. But what does this mean today? How does this apply today? Where does Jesus fit in with all this? Well, to apply this, we've got to be clear who God is speaking to. And he's speaking to people who have persistently rejected him. Throughout Amos, we've been hearing how the Israelites have worshipped other gods instead of their God, how they've abused the poor and the weak, how they've lived only for themselves. And God, throughout the book, has warned them, he's called them, he's tried to bring them back to him, but they continue, they persevere in rejecting him. And so finally, now God says, you face inescapable judgment. I am against you. So the person this applies to today is the person who perseveres in rejecting God or Jesus. Might be just a straightforward atheist, if you like. Might worship other gods. They might be a kind of Christian in name. They got baptized or married in church or something. But look at their lives. And it's like the Israelites. They were God's people in name. But look at their lives and you see they just live for themselves. They worship other things and they reject God. Amos is saying for that person, for the person who consistently rejects God, judgment is inescapable. That could change. That's why I say it's inescapable without Jesus. Jesus can rescue you from this, but reject him and you're on your own. And that is terrifying. If that's you, Amos wants to get across to you, not just the fact of judgment, he wants to awaken your imagination and hit your emotions so that you feel this, you sense this is terrifying for me, so that you might come to Jesus for rescue. Now, I'm aware most of us are Christians and we know Jesus' rescue, but I still need to hear this. My friends, my family, those I know who aren't Christians, who reject Jesus, I easily ignore the fact of judgment for them. I sort of deny it, push it away in my mind. Don't deny it. Don't think about it. God is saying this is inescapable, unavoidable, and I need to face up to that. We were talking about Amos in our splinter group this week, and a little theme kind of came out, which was how much Amos shows us we need to pray for our non-Christian friends. We need to speak to our non-Christian friends about Jesus. It's pretty simple, pray and speak. But we're all saying how easily it doesn't happen. Well, grasping this, feeling this, getting this, I think will power, will motivate, will get us to pray and look for those opportunities to speak. So judgment, terrifying. Secondly, I'm glad to say, the second half of the passage changes completely as God promises a new creation. And this time the tone is longing, dreaming of everything you could possibly wish for. So verse 11, in that day I will restore David's fallen tent, repair its broken places, restore its ruins and build it. Now David was the great king of Israel, and his tent is God's people or kingdom. So God is saying he will restore, rebuild his people. And it happens through David's son or heir, Jesus. Jesus comes and lives and dies and rises. He deals with the judgment we've just been talking about. So we can be forgiven and not face that. Instead, we can know God. We can be part of his people. We can be rebuilt into his people. And not only that, Jesus says, one day I'll return, I'll come back, and I will bring in God's new creation. And we're told here what it's going to be like. Verse 13, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the ploughman, and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills. Now, it's a bit of a crazy picture, this. We've got a person reaping some crops, but they're getting hassled from behind. They're getting told to hurry up by the person who's trying to plough up the field to sow a new harvest. The point being, there are so many crops, you haven't got time to get them all in before it's time to sow. Or there are so many grapes, the person planting a new crop is getting swamped by the people treading out the grapes, making wine. It's a picture of huge abundance. The last line sums it up. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from the hills. A couple of weeks ago, we went for a walk when it was really wet weather, walking up a slope, and water was just running down in streams down the hill and across the path. Amos is saying, imagine that's Shiraz or Chardonnay. Beautiful wine, that's how abundant it will be. And verse 14 and 15, I will bring back my exiled people Israel. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant Israel in their own land, never to be uprooted from the land I have given them. I thought in the week you could read that in quite a mundane way. It basically says they'll have a home with a garden, with an apple tree, and they'll eat the apples. And it's pretty dull. But Amos is speaking to some people who have lost everything in exile. And to the point is he's painting a picture now of things being right, things being as they should be. You'll have a place to live. You'll grow crops. You'll have food. You'll have safety. You'll have security. You'll have abundance. In fact, the abundance of wine flowing down the mountains. Actually, this kind of harks back to Eden in Genesis 1 and 2. In the Bible, Eden is a place of security and safety and provision and abundance. It's the home we were made to live in. And that's what God is promising here. He's promising to rebuild his people and give them one day Eden. And I want to suggest, what I want us to all really kind of get is that this is what we all dream of. Even if we don't know it explicitly, this is what we're dreaming of. J.R. Tolkien of Lord of the Rings wrote a letter to his son, or many letters to his son, but in one of his letters, he said this. He said, certainly there was an Eden on this unhappy earth. We all long for it, and we're constantly glimpsing it. Our whole nature is soaked with a sense of exile. Tolkien says we all long for, or we all dream of, Eden. And he says that can happen in two ways. First of all, it can happen in sort of bad stuff. Tolkien says we're soaked with a sense of exile. That is, we have a sense we're not at home, we're not in the right place, or we have a sense life isn't as it should be. We've probably got a very strong sense of that at the moment in lockdown. Life isn't meant to be like this. We're meant to see people, we're meant to get out, we're meant to do things. And you know, we're really feeling that at the moment. But even if we thought about more normal life, it's still not all it should be, is it? You know, we can hurt each other, let each other down. There are times we're lonely. Work can be frustrating. Things break. The house is a mess. I could go on and on. Why do we feel like that? Where does that frustration and disappointment come from? Well, it's because we were made for Eden. We were made for something better. And that's what Tolkien means when he says we have a sense of exile. This isn't how it should be. I feel frustrated by this because I have a sense of Eden. I have a dream of something better than this. So frustrations at the bad stuff can make us long for Eden, or show we're longing for Eden. Or Tolkien says we also long for Eden by glimpsing it in the good stuff. I think he means sort of like the good things in life, which give us a glimpse, a taste of what Eden will be like. This week, our 2-year-old Isabel was very sweet with Jess, who's about 5 months. She came up to her. She said Jess, and was delighted to see her, and came up and looked at her and gave her a hug and said, "Jess, happy?" and gave her a kiss. And it was delightful. It was lovely. I mean, 2 minutes later, Jess had taken her toy and Isabel was crying and everything had fallen apart, you know. But to be honest, because I was writing this sermon, it made me think, gosh, imagine a world where we just enjoyed each other. Imagine a world where there was no envy or selfishness or jealousy, or we just celebrated each other and delighted. It was like I got a very brief glimpse of how things one day will be, well, perfected. And we get those glimpses in the best moments of life, you know, when a friendship is truly good, when work is satisfying, we enjoy good food, lovely moments with family. Work is good. We have great art, nature. They give us a glimpse, a taste, a sense of Eden. God promises us a new creation, and it will be all we have ever dreamed of. And one day in Jesus, the dream will come true. And when he returns, we will live in the dream world, and we will have the dream relationships, and we'll have the dream job, and we'll eat a dream meal, and we'll have a dream home, and it will be a dream society. The Bible isn't just a statement of facts. There's also how we feel about the facts. And Amos is calling us to be terrified of inescapable judgment without Jesus. So come to him for rescue. And he's calling us to long, to dream, to let the frustrations, the bad things, let the good things point you to what is coming, Eden, our perfect world. Let's take a moment, and then I'm going to pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for Amos. Thank you for all you've taught us through this book. Thank you for this message now. May we be rightly terrified and seek security and safety and rescue in Jesus. And may we be rightly longing, dreaming, knowing this perfect future is coming. May it help us in the hard weeks we face at the moment. May the frustrations remind us of Eden. May the good things remind us of Eden. Please encourage us and give us joy in our longing, in our dreams, which will become reality in Jesus. Amen.